Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I hope you all had an incredible evening last night checking out the vibrant neighborhoods of Portland and the incredible, yes, thank you. It was wonderful. And also the incredible guided experiences that they have here in the city as well. My name is Gabi Duarte. I am the program manager with the global sales team at Travel Oregon. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. I'm incredibly excited to be with you, and hopefully everyone got their boarding pass to London, because in just a few minutes we'll be inviting our partners with the Port of Portland and British Airways back on stage to give away another trip. But first I'd like to take a moment to introduce another longtime strategic partner of Travel Oregon, and that's Miles Partnerships. Miles is Brand USA's marketing partner and also the country's leading destination marketing company, supporting our work around the globe. Please join me in welcoming John DeLeva with Miles Partnerships.
At Miles, we're different. You don't catch us saying we think out of the box, because here, the way we do it is we think out of the can. Good morning. I guess there is a little voice left from last night. Good times. Hey, one quick question though. I got a middle seat. Anyone want to trade? I just have a short story to go with my thank you, and it'll relate to that little video. I talk to my dad a couple times a week, always on Sunday, and his last question for me is always, where are you going next week? If I say Boston, he'll say, you going to see the Sox play? If I say Seattle, it's, you going to see your brother? But every now and then I say I'm going to a place like Portland, and he says, be careful. Exactly. And I used to say, come on, Dad, it's old news. It's a great city. Believe me, I'm staying a mile away from the convention center, and I'm walking everywhere, and I see so much. And, it's his old ways. But I tell him, Dad, I get what you're saying. I'm going to start thinking out of the can. You tell me to be careful, and I am going to be careful. I'm going to be careful that my eyes are wide open so I could find my way to Huber's and have one of those Spanish coffees. I'm going to make sure my ears are wide open so when Greg Eckhart says, you got to go to Jackpot Records, I go to Jackpot Records. And I'm going to make sure my mind's wide open so when I come to this conference, I appreciate and enjoy every one of you and everything the Travel Oregon team puts together. And I just want to say, be careful out there, because if you pay attention, there's a heck of a lot to see in this city, in this state, and I'm just thankful to be a part of it. Thank you all.
Todd, you didn't tell me I was following a comedian, so it was really good. Great remarks. In 2019, British Airways flew to Portland and told Stoney and I and some of us at the port that they had every intention of launching nonstop service from Portland to London in 2020. And something got in the way of that. But last year, in June, British Airways, in fact, launched nonstop service from Portland to Heathrow. It's our biggest market in Europe, and had been one of our target market for years to have year-round nonstop service to London. And their network beyond the Heathrow hub is incredible. It was, without a question, it was our biggest win in 2022 was to get nonstop service with British Airways to London. It's it checks all the boxes. World-class airline, business travel, leisure travel, all want to be on British Airways, have a great network beyond their hub in Heathrow. And they're also a one-world carrier. They partner with American. They partner with our biggest airline at PDX, Alaska Airlines. So there's a lot of synergy there as a one-world carrier. It was the only market they added in 2022 to North America was to PDX. So we took great pride in the fact that we were able to secure that service with a lot of support from our tourism partners. Claire Curtis flew in from Dallas to speak to us today from British Airways. She got sick. She had to fly back to Dallas yesterday, unfortunately. But we're really excited that Norma Rios, the head of sales for North America, is going to provide a little video for us. We're going to see a little video after that of British Airways, and then we're going to give away a trip for two to London. So sit tight and watch some videos. Scott, it's up to you.
Good morning. I'm Norma Rios, the interim head of North America sales for British Airways. And on behalf of the British Airways team, I want to extend our thanks to Travel Oregon, Travel Portland, and the Portland Port for allowing us to be part of this conference. I also want to extend our apologies for not being there in person and hope to see you at next year's conference. My colleague Claire Curtis, who was due to speak today, had to return home unexpectedly because she is unwell. This time last year, our commercial management team was in Portland preparing to launch our new nonstop service to London Heathrow, and this June marks our 1-year anniversary in the Rose City. I'm excited to share that from June to October this year, we will be increasing our services to 7 days a week to PDX, and all of our Portland flights are scheduled to have our new award-winning Club Suite business class seats. British Airways, of course, pioneered the lie flat bed over 20 years ago. Our latest Club Seat offering continues to feature a lie flat bed with direct aisle access from every seat, as well as 40% more storage space, and my personal favorite feature, a privacy door. You'll arrive in London refreshed and ready to explore historic sites, diverse food options, inspiring museums, and so much more. British Airways flies to destinations in more than 65 countries, so if you're traveling to our global network beyond London, we offer connections to over 20 countries in Europe, including major hubs like Paris, Madrid, and Frankfurt. We also offer connection to major business hubs in Africa and Middle East, such as Dubai, Tel Aviv, Johannesburg, and Nairobi. I would be remiss not to mention one of the many key reasons we were attracted to Portland, and that is the aligned mission with our airline and this community: sustainability. Sustainability has been at the heart of our business at British Airways. We care about the impact of every flight. That's why we're driving urgent action towards net zero emissions. We have a long history of managing and reducing our carbon emissions and a clear roadmap to achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2050, with ambitious short, medium, and long-term initiatives to achieve our goals. In fact, we just celebrated the 1-year anniversary of our BA Better World program. We continue to focus on building a sustainable future, and we are making progress on our journey to get us there, including reducing our emissions and waste. We're investing in sustainable aviation fuel, zero-emission aircraft, and enabling you, the customer, to offset your emissions and have clear goals to be carbon net zero by 2050. Thank you again for having me. We do have another quick video to showcase all that British Airways offers on board our flight. And if we can ask one thing of this wonderful community, please tell everybody about our daily service to London. Thank you once again for letting us be a part of this great event. And congratulations in advance to whoever the lucky winner of our special prize will be. Thank you.
For business, for leisure, for love, for life.
What's the purpose of your visit?
What is the purpose of your visit?
Purpose of your visit?
One thing that Norma said that I would just like to reinforce is that I'd like to make all of you today ambassadors of PDX. So when you go back home, friends, family, neighbors, coworkers, tell them if they're going anywhere in Europe, please tell them to use one of our nonstops. London, Amsterdam, Reykjavik, and Frankfurt. It's really important for our market that people take advantage of our nonstop international flights. So now we're going to give away a trip. Sony's going to come up with me, and we're going to get a picture with the winner. But if you're not going to turn the boarding pass over like yesterday, but if your seat assignment happens to be 6A, you want a trip for 2 to London. So somebody there, the seat assignment 6A, is that you? No? Are you the winner? No. Anybody have 6 seat A? 6A. Come on up. Come on up. Bob, congratulations. Bob, you're with Southern Oregon, right?
Yes, Southern Oregon.
Yes, congratulations, Bob. Trip for 2 to London. Here, we'll get a... Thank you. Great conference, everybody.
All right, Corvallis bought drinks last night. You know who's buying tonight. I'd check his boarding pass. I saw him with a Sharpie, you know. Congratulations, Mr. Hackett. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. You know, the last couple of general sessions, I've had the pleasure of standing before you and talking about the 10-year strategic vision that the Oregon Tourism Commission adopted last June. And I just have to state unequivocally how excited I am to embark on Travel Oregon's 10-year strategic vision journey with you. Because at its core, and as I mentioned yesterday morning, it needs to be both an industry and an agency vision. We know that we can't do this alone. We believe that by collaboratively aligning this industry around the destination stewardship approach, that Oregon as a destination will continue to flourish. It'll continue to provide meaningful jobs for Oregonians, welcoming visitors from around the world, from near and far, and building connections and respect for the diverse cultures and peoples that comprise Oregonians, and for our natural environment as well. In 2019, the tourism industry generated $12.8 billion in visitor spending, employed more than 118,000 Oregonians. And as we know, the impact of COVID on travel was swift and severe. But Oregon communities, Oregonians, and Oregon's travel and tourism industry showed incredible resiliency. My friends, if living through a global pandemic has taught us anything at all, it's that together we can adapt, we can thrive in the face of a great challenge. We can see ways that we continue to lift one another up. And I can assure you that seeing the ways that we have continued to lift each other up as we have navigated the pandemic, we've come back together here. I've heard from so many of you how energized you are, that the vibe at this conference is as strong as any conference you have ever attended here in Oregon. All that does is continue to just fill me with greater optimism and greater hope. So it's a tremendous pleasure for me to be able to share, as you see here on this slide, and to be able to reinforce the message that the governor shared with us Monday night. That in 2022, Oregon's travel and tourism industry has reclaimed that role and has regrown to $13.8 billion in visitor spending, supporting over 117,000 jobs with $4.3 billion in earnings. Now, admittedly, the recovery has not been balanced across the state, and some of Oregon's international markets are still continuing to struggle with how to best reopen, how to reopen their borders, how to encourage their citizens to travel. But the recovery is happening, and the industry's resilience is palpable. And every region of Oregon is sharing in its economic, reputational, and pride-boosting benefits. Our charge as an agency and as an industry is to work to see that these benefits are resulting in a balanced, optimized system of growth. Yes, we absolutely want and need Oregon's economy to flourish. And we want its ripples to be felt in every community and in every season. We want our workforce, our residents, and our policymakers to be aware, to be advocating on behalf of the travel and tourism industry here in Oregon. So we will continue to tell authentic stories that reflect the diverse cultures and people and places of Oregon, and we will share them in a manner that addresses some of those visitor pressures that can occur, dispersing visitation geographically and seasonally, adding to a more stable, year-round pattern of visitation that will create stronger and better opportunities for year-round, career-oriented employment. Because yes, indeed, sales and marketing can be truly potent destination management tools as well. To share how the power of innovation and collaboration are driving inspiration for international travel to Oregon, please join me in welcoming Lorna Davis, Travel Oregon's Global Sales Manager, to the stage. Lorna, come on up.
Good morning. Thank you, Todd, for that welcome. And it's great to be here with so many people that are passionate as I am about promoting Oregon. Today I'm going to touch on Travel Oregon's work in Canada, our largest international market, and speaking about how our work is done there. It's been in service to our 10-year strategic vision for some time. Our work in Canada is showcasing Oregon as a premier destination for visitors. We inspire visitation and share stories that honor our mission and values. Through our engagement with journalists, our presence at consumer shows, and with industry partnerships such as that with Brand USA, we have successfully sparked collaboration with stakeholders. We create a space for engagement in our promotions and activities in Canada, inviting regional partners and Oregon guides, many of you who are here today, to travel along with us or to participate in familiarization tours to share Oregon's stories and experiences. For a number of years, we've participated in the Vancouver Outdoor Adventure Show, a large consumer-facing show that takes place annually in the spring. This year, we had 12 Oregon partners with us at the show, representing all regions of Oregon. We hosted a media engagement activation in which we leveraged our sponsorship program with the Vancouver Canucks, a professional hockey team in Canada. And there were 12 Oregon partners and over 30 media who joined us in a suite, and it resulted in immediate and ongoing coverage and press for Oregon. We invited Canadian journalists and travel trade professionals to come on familiar visitation tours throughout the year, visiting our communities throughout the state, meeting with regional partners and stakeholders, and then sharing their stories in outlets throughout Canada. Brand USA, based in Washington, D.C., serves as the country's destination marketing organization and is an incredible partner to Travel Oregon. Recently, in partnership with Brand USA and one of our major airline partners, Air Canada, a contest called Sell Your Way to the USA awarded top Oregon selling product managers a trip to familiarize themselves with Oregon. They visited several regions and had a guided experience throughout Oregon. We participate in many Brand USA campaigns, one of which is the Spring Multi-Channel campaign, and it gives us an even broader reach and more robust reach. and it allows us to help our Travel Oregon partners to engage with us. It gives us opportunities through website, social, and digital means with a call to action booking exposure. All of this supports our destination stewardship approach. Engaging with stakeholders and partners in such a direct way for us is a way to work together to encourage respectful and meaningful visitation. This approach results in positive impacts and outcomes on the way people visit. They have a better experience, and we have opportunities to message and educate in ways that promote equity and understanding of our unique communities and protect our environment now and for future generations. How does this support our commitment and focus of using a prosperity lens and our objective of Oregon's tourism economy is flourishing? Vancouver, BC is a target market for Oregon and visitors traveling statewide. Our ongoing commitment to work in the market will bring lasting positive effects. And according to our 2022 Tourism Recovery Outlook report from Tourism Economics, Canada will be our first international market to bounce back completely. 2019 visitation levels are expected to be restored by 2024, and in fact, surpassed by 2025. We're really excited for the work that we do in Canada and how it supports our strategic vision. Thank you.
You know, I mentioned yesterday how very, very lucky I feel to do what I do. Because I love what I do. I believe in what I do. I believe that the travel and tourism industry creates good jobs for Oregonians. And yeah, some of those jobs might be part-time, seasonal opportunities, but you know, every maturing economy needs those kinds of jobs where folks can show that they're ready to show up to work, properly motivated, right frame of mind, properly dressed, on time, and then develop those work maturity skills that will literally propel them throughout their career. So I believe in this industry deeply. And I certainly love where I get to do it. I will playfully tell people that have gotten to know me that Carolyn and I, we have two boys, and they're 8 years apart. For those of you that are in the room that are mothers, you'll appreciate Carolyn's take on this because she says there's 8 years between the two boys because women do remember the pain of childbirth. The truth is, we moved to Oregon when Zach, our oldest, was 4. Not only oldest, was 4. And at that age, he was ready to be mobile with us. So we were backpacking, and we were canoeing, and we were kayaking, and we were Oregonians. We'd moved here from the Midwest in the mid-'80s, and we just immersed ourselves in the grandeur of Oregon. And about the time Zach was turning 7, Carolyn looked at me and said, if we want to have any more kids, we might want to think about this, because we were just loving just being able to be out and about. So, love this place. And I'm committing to preserving this place and leaving it even better than I ever found it. And I certainly love the folks I do it with. And yeah, that goes for the Lornas and Alexas and Hillarys and Lisas that you've already heard from, and LaDon, who you'll hear from this afternoon, all the folks at Travel Oregon, but it also goes for you. As you saw in one of Lorna's slides, you saw that group of Oregonians standing there. And I could sit there and I could tell you where they're all from individually, but they were all there as Oregonians. And I remember as clearly today as I did the first time I heard it that I showed up at an IPW and I was new to being the tourism director. And somebody came up to me and said, "How do you guys do it?" And I was like, "Do what?" He goes, "You've got 30 Oregonians here, and every one of them is on message. They are selling Oregon." I said, "Yeah." I said, all I can tell you is it was this way when I got here, and my job is to never screw it up, because, whether it's in our DNA or we just know it to be true. We know the power in selling Oregon first. We are not one another's competition, right? We got to get them to Oregon first. Then we can worry about the regions and the communities and the lodging opportunities, et cetera, that they're going to stay at in that experience. And if not this time, you'll be next time. Because we know the rising tide truly does raise all ships. And we do that better than anybody. And let me tell you that I've had tourism directors from other states come up to me, not just once or twice, but several times, and ask me that question. How do you guys do this? It's unique and it's special, and we should cherish that. I have the pleasure now to introduce our keynotes for this morning. And I'm going to call it a tag team because it sounds more polite than a cage fight, because it's really not a fight. But we're going to do back-to-back keynote speakers this morning. So I'm going to give you one introduction, and then I'm going to leave so that they can just follow each other up here. But you've heard myself and you've heard us at Travel Oregon talk about the power of data-driven programs and the influence that we need to provide good research, current research. So we've brought in the best. We brought in our partners from Tourism Economics, who are a trusted source for us when we're doing our revenue forecasts, when we're looking at opportunities internationally, trying to both measure the impact of international visitation to Oregon and what we believe the forecast can be. And joining us today from Tourism Economics is Zeke Coleman. Zeke's been with the Savannah Convention and Visitor Bureau. He's worked with Adara, and he's currently the VP of Americas for Tourism Economics, working especially focused on business development. Zeke will then be followed by someone I've had the great pleasure of knowing for decades. Mr. Chris Thompson is the president and CEO of Brand USA. Chris has been a local DMO director. He has been my colleague when he ran Visit Florida. He was their COO and then became their CEO there for a number of years until a few of us got around him and probably offered him a martini and really encouraged him to apply for this new gig because America had finally, in 2010, signed into law the Travel Promotion Act, and for the first time ever was going to have a national destination marketing organization in Brand USA. And Chris has served in that role now for the past 11 years and has done it masterfully. And he and his team are coming up with innovative and inspiring programs that are making America one of the most in-demand destinations on the planet. So please join me in initially welcoming Zeke Coleman to then be followed by Chris Thompson. Zeke, come on up, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's an incredible privilege, and I was here 2 weeks ago, actually, in Portland, for Portland, and so this will be a bigger, broader view for Oregon, and I'm just excited to be here. I got to say, this image I've just been captivated the whole time. It's fantastic. I want to go there, and Greg said he lives nearby. I got to go there. The other thing I'll say is, when I was at Visit Savannah, I borrowed a lot of ideas from Oregon, Travel Oregon, your website, your team, your technology, and I've never given that back, but it was much appreciated. So what we're going to look at is we're going to look at the economy. We're going to look at this question of Oregon's travel industry and can it defy economic gravity? We're going to answer a couple of questions. I'll first start with giving you a bit of an overview of how things are nationally and in Oregon, and then we'll dive into this question. And then we'll look at international, we'll look at your jobs, labor market, and lodging rate, demand, all that good stuff. So let's jump right in. I'm jumping. There we go. All right, so first thing I'll show you is travel spending nationally, both for the month of February and for year to date over 2019, so that'd be January and February. We're up significantly with travel spending. You will notice in the center there, overseas arrivals are down, but good story coming later about that, about the trend and where things are going. Speaking of trends, so that red line is the US, the blue line is the state of Oregon, and trending with the national average and above 2019 numbers currently, if you continue with that uptick in travel spending. Oregon is actually up 3.5% over 2019. And when you look at other indicators, there's a lot of momentum. So what I have circled there, or the square around it, is hotel demand for all of hotels in the country, and then for the top 25, that is your biggest cities, and basically it's getting more positive. As you go from left to right, it gets less red, more blue, and then if you look below that, short-term rental trend is getting from blue to more blue. So that's just saying people are traveling, people are wanting to travel. That's a good sign for us. Now, for the questions I mentioned, so the first question is, are we still headed for a recession? I say still because we've had to move that several times. We initially were thinking Q1 and Q2 of this year. Tourism Economics parent company, Oxford Economics, is one of the foremost leaders in forecasting, and that was the initial take. Then it shifted to Q2 and Q3 of this year, and more recently, last month, we actually adjusted that again for the second half of this year, expecting a recession. But are we still headed forward? We'll see some data on that. And then how does this usually work? When there's a recession or when GDP drops, how does that impact hotel demand? Historically, we'll look at the last couple of recessions, and then finally, is this time different? If historically this is what happens, should we just pencil in history? So first thing, unemployment rate is the lowest it's been in 50 years. If you look at the bottom of that sort of upside down V, it's on par with back in the 60s to the far left. So very, very low unemployment. And job growth remains solid, actually trending in the right direction. That said, consumers are still feeling uneasy. The culprit is inflation. So right now, one of the reasons that you don't feel like you have as much money as you do is because it's about $400 a month more expensive to buy the same exact stuff you were buying before. So that's not a great feeling. It's nationally. Now, inflation has taken a bite out of disposable income. So this is a bit of a nerdy chart with the nominal income, that is what you get, the real income, which is when you account for inflation, how you are compared to before. So 100 would be flat. If you're below 100, it'd be you're poorer. 113 is higher. So you made more, but you really didn't. And for my C students, I really like this chart. I'm a C student, so we're actually 0.5% poorer. What does that mean? Well, if you made 100K, just to make easy math last year, and you got a raise to 111K, you can buy $99,000 worth of goods. So, hurrah, great to get a raise. The housing market is already in recession. If you didn't know that, it varies across the country, but in Texas, where I'm at, it's tough selling homes. And manufacturing has also entered downturn territory. And households are taking on more debt. So you guys remember during the pandemic when our hair was all crazy and things were wild, we used stimulus checks, stimmies, to pay down our debt. We were all nervous. We didn't know what the future held, and we didn't want to die with debt. But as things started to pick back up, we all went to Amazon, we bought a bunch of goods, and we started to travel, and we used our credit cards to finance it despite inflation. Leading indicators point to a contraction later this year. This is just looking at GDP alongside travel, and you can see they're both pointing down. And so yes, even though I already mentioned it, we are headed toward a recession in Q3 and Q4 of this year. And there are three reasons that we expect it to be mild. I'll get into those a bit more, but suffice it to say, we're headed there. Now, again, it is mild. So these are the last couple of recessions dating back to the 60s. You'll see that red bar, that's where we're going to be, where we're anticipating. Closest bar is 1991, kind of there in the middle. And you obviously see 2020, 2008, and 2009 financial crisis, and 2001. So let's dig into this a bit more. So how does this usually work? When there's a recession, when you see that drop in the economy, it shrinks, how does that impact demand? So this is a chart looking at the last three recessions and hotel demand over against GDP. So on the far right, you see 2008, 2009 financial crisis. It's negative 4% drop in GDP. So economy shrinks, an 8 to 9% drop in hotel demand. So about a 2x response. Drops 2 times the drop in how much business we get. In 2001, it was unique because of the 9/11, and the economy actually grew, but 7% drop. So that one you can kind of scrap out, but it's still in the average. And then 1991, that one's close to this year because there's a 1% drop. You see on the previous slide, we had 0.9, and we see a 3.9% drop in hotel demand. And so that's unique because in that year, inflation was about 5%. This year, or during this whole time, it's been between 6 and 7. So very close numbers, basically. Now, when there's this drop of 1%, on average, there's a 3.7% drop in ADR, in rate, but you really feel it in the luxury end. So on the far end, luxury is going to feel it the worst, typically. When you put these two together, you take rate, you take demand, again, pretty, significant drop in 2009 and 2001. Rate didn't drop as much in 1991 because of inflation, and so, the rate stayed the same. So the question is this time any different? In other words, should we pencil in 1991? Should you be bracing for the second half of this year a 4x drop in demand? We would say no, and there are 4 reasons I'm going to cover really quickly, and then I'll get into the Oregon-specific data. So the first is U.S. households are actually in a unique position of strength. So household balance sheet remains strong. So on the far left, I mentioned debt. The far left is the cost to finance your debt. So it's actually gone down. It's at a historic low. It's got uptick because of the Fed, but still pretty low. There on the far right. And then household net worth. Although you are 0.5% poorer in your salary, overall your net worth is up. So you got more value on the whole, Americans do. So that's a good thing. On the earnings call with Marriott, these are very telling, really helpful things. They said, to date, we've not seen signs of demand softening. Trends could change quickly, but booking demand and pricing remain strong. So that's a positive sign for your travel industry, just macro view. And excess savings are buffer. I mentioned debt. One of the things that happened during the pandemic is there were $2.7 trillion roughly in savings. That's gone down a bit. I want to say it's been as low as 1.7, but people still have a lot of money saved. So that's a good thing. And especially at the top income quartile, they hold close to half of excess savings. So, that's a positive sign for who's going to travel when things get tight. Inflation does remain high, but we do expect that to slow in the coming months. Second point, pent-up demand. So pent-up demand and prioritization of travel is real. Let's look at some sentiment data here. So Expedia on their earnings call said that they continue to see people prioritizing travel over just about anything. On the right, we have a question from Destination Analysts. They asked travelers, which best describes how excited you are about leisure travel in the next 12 months? And on a scale up to 11, 8.2. And you can see from the start of the pandemic to now, that's really, really high. So trending in a very positive direction, how they feel, despite saying that they feel uneasy as consumers. Retail sales have plateaued. That's a positive sign for travel because we're in the services bracket. And so when you look at durable goods and non-durable goods spending, they're down. Services, of which we are part, are up. And services historically are at about 70% of total consumption. Everything people are buying, we're at 66 now. So that says we're going up. We're 4 points below where we were. Got a lot of room to grow, and basically that's a very positive sign. When looking at the travel budget for the next 12 months, it's increased 13% over the past year. People are prioritizing travel with their wallets. And then from our friends at Longwoods, they actually, pretty much flatline of just everybody's planning to travel out into the future. And when you do see slippage, especially during a recession or heading into a recession, unfortunately, those that are hit hardest are the lowest income earners, and so they are pulling back on travel plans. But again, at those top 3 brackets there, not so much over the next 6 months. That's from MMGY. Now, the economy class is losing ground, so you can see on the far right, broken up by class. That's the one that's getting hit pretty hard compared to 2019. That's occupancy. And this is a new trend. 34% plan to travel as they work remotely. So this whole thing of, as I'm looking at this image, I'm thinking, where is a cabin or a hotel or something here so that I can come here and work because I work remote? Like, I want to work here for a month. And over there, and on that mountain, and over there. So this is a real thing, and it's in the data. United Airlines on their earnings call said there's been a permanent structural change in leisure demand because of the flexibility that hybrid work allows. It's a new normal, basically. Third reason, businesses are still restoring necessary travel. So very positive for business travel. So this is you can see Q2 of 2022, Q3 is in the dark gray, and then Q4 in the blue, and all going up, including internal meetings, which actually went down in Q3 of last year, but back up toward the end of last year. So this is all positive news. Delta actually said on their earnings call, consumer demand remains healthy with advanced bookings significantly ahead for each month of the March quarter compared to 2019. And in our recent corporate survey, results were positive with 96% of respondents expecting to travel as much or more in Q1 than Q4. Really positive for business travel. So again, you're looking at all the different segments, leisure, business, balance sheets, all strong. Lastly, international is still rebuilding. So that's, again, positive sign. And like I said, I'll get into the Oregon specific data. But inbound is gaining momentum. So U.S. inbound, 65% recovered in 2022. U.S. outbound, 81% recovered in 2022. And this gap is going to narrow this year. Asia is lagging, but it is staged for continued recovery. And American Airlines actually said, we expect a strong demand environment to continue in 2023 and anticipate further improvement in long-haul international travel this year. Room demand is still below the economic trend, but you can see that the blue line and the dark blue line, GDP, and the light blue line, room demand, are tracking together, and they're both tracking up despite anticipated recession. So that's the story. So now, looking at global performance, this is everything. This is taking a look at international. I'll explain this quickly. So this is international tourist arrivals by world region. The gray, you see that V, that dip, that's 2020, obviously. Where it goes from gray to white, that is the start of last year. And you'll see at the start of last year, everything international, all those arrivals going up. That's basically the story. It's really going in the right direction. It's positive. It's good. Australia provides a unique example of what could be happening in China. So the dark blue is pre-opening of their borders. When their borders open, there at the start of last year, the light blue, significant uptick in travel, 56% point improvement. So with China, though Chinese recovery is probably going to be slow because domestic travel is preferred, we have it that start of this year, it could be as low as 70% of 2019 and as high as about 50% of 2019. But if you follow that line, continuing to grow, and if it's anything like Australia, could grow much faster than we think, just depending on how things shake out. And I got this chart actually from the Brand USA team. They were checking some of my slides and asking questions and sent this, and I said, wow, that's interesting. They pulled our data, and I had to add this. So this is at the end of last year. This was our forecast in the blue. The orange is last month. So the latest data, actually the end of last month. That's why I didn't have it. And so you'll see that uptick. Basically, we're more optimistic about international inbound arrivals as well. Canada is actually leading the charge toward recovery. They're trending toward recovery this year. If they stay in that light blue above that dotted line, they're going to be recovered for the U.S. And then EMEA is trending in the right direction, still has room to grow, but going up. Now, let's look at Oregon. So for international with Oregon, this is state data. You'll see 2024. That is where we would anticipate a recovery or near recovery for Oregon as it relates to arrivals. And then for visitor spending, complete recovery in 2024 with you guys booming in 2025. When you look at jobs, leisure and hospitality is outpacing every other industry. So 32%, I saw 37 on the screen, so really close. This is data directly from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This V, again, is, so pandemic happened, dropped. You see the other end of that V going up. The difference between those two peaks is where we are, very close to recovery, very positive, good picture. That said, the growth of that segment for leisure and hospitality for Oregon is not as high as others. And total employment overall, you guys are trending toward recovery. If that dark blue line continues to tick up, you basically be recovered as it relates to employment for leisure and hospitality. Finally, lodging. So Oregon slightly underperformed the nation. Not surprised, but still, as you can see, the nation's kind of ticking down. That dark blue line's going just up, so really good. But great news here, you guys outperformed surrounding states minus Idaho. So you're kicking butt. That's a great feeling. And then Oregon ADRs are well above 2019 levels. That's also a really good thing for you guys. There's a lot of states where that's not the case. So I think that's great. And then hotel revenue above 2019 for every month of 2022. I think that's significant, and you guys should give yourselves a hand for that, if you will. Somebody start it off. There we go. So in summary, we do expect a mild recession in 2023. Inflation and higher interest rates are going to leave a mark. Usually this would imply substantial downtick in hotel demand, but we expect that that's not going to be the case because balance sheets are strong, pent-up demand and prioritization of travel is real. Businesses are continuing to rebuild and international is coming back. So the travel outlook was recently revised. Second half of this year, mild recession. Oregon is put in a great position for recovery and very optimistic. I know there are going to be some questions, but I'm not going to, I had this slide in there. You can scan this if you want to shoot me a note, but Chris Thompson's going to come up here and build on this. Thank you.
So good morning, everyone. I'll say the same that Zeke said. So proud and feel like a real privilege to be here with you. As Todd said, we've known each other a long time. This spring, I've been in the destination marketing space for 40 years. And at least half of that was at the state level. So I have fond memories of representing the state of Florida. Back then, I guess Todd and I were frenemies or co-opetiers, or I don't know, there's lots of acronyms we can use. But the collegial nature of our sector is very strong, and as Zeke said, when I was a colleague and a friend of me, we're always looking out to see who's doing good, and lots of times we were looking out to the Pacific Northwest and what Todd was leading here. So really, really appreciate the opportunity. I think you can appreciate from what Zeke presented that our friends at Tourism Economics Office give us a great outlook of all things economics and then all things tied specifically to our sector. So the beauty of having a tag team like this is I would normally have to deliver it, so at this time you got it from the source instead of from me, so it was very accurate and really, really good. Probably better than I could deliver it. So if we look at my first slide, and there we go. So I'm just going to add a couple things. It'll be a reinforcement of what Zeke said, and really talks about a lot of some positive that over the last 3 years that's obviously been as challenging as anything we've seen. I've said all along, and it's really coming from research that we do in market, proprietary research, which is actually tapping into the pulse of how our customers and our friends in market are feeling. And when you look at this, which is the likelihood to travel to the USA in the next 12 months, and it really takes us from 2017 through 2023, pre-COVID, and now into some advanced stages of recovery. For all markets, the likelihood has stayed fairly consistent. So I've always said it's really not a demand issue. What makes the USA one of the most, if not the most aspirational destination in the world really didn't change. As a matter of fact, over COVID, when all of us were not able to do what we're normally doing, we worked hard to try to make it even better so that when we came out that there was a better experience delivered. So that was a constant, and that is something that is going to really serve us well as we're trying to work our way back. And then when you look at this, which is, we also asked the question, tell us what are the main reasons for not traveling to the USA in the next 12 months. I would say if you look at 2019, we had 80 million visitors. A little over 20 came from Canada, a little under 20 came from Mexico, so half of our 80 million visitors came from our friends to the north and the south. So a lot of them have been here, done that, so we always have to fight that. And particularly in Canada, I'll go up there and challenge any of my friends that I want to remain as friends, but I'll still challenge them and I'll say, for as much as you think you know about the US, I promise you there's more that you've never seen. So that's our big challenge. So that first one being the top of the list is not an issue, is not surprising. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of the reasons why people are maybe looking another way at the moment. And then the second one being it's a more expensive vacation. Certainly right now we're dealing with inflation worldwide, we're dealing with currency exchanges, and we're being challenged in some of our traditional markets with the strong dollar actually making it a little more expensive to travel here. And then the rest of the list is the usual candidates of things that you would look at, but that just gives you an idea. If you're looking specifically at international, and as Zeke presented, a lot of the things as it relates to recovery of the tourism economy in the country, and certainly here in Oregon, is that international is trailing. And that was our chart of your information. And the forecast that tourism economics still brings to us is that we're not going to be fully recovered to 2019 numbers for international inbound travel till sometime between 2024 and 2025, though it keeps creeping up. So at some point, maybe soon, we'll actually get into 24, which is only next year. So that's a good thing. But I will say that China being a market very important to the United States, and certainly to this great state, I like to say it's a hot mess. I'm not sure when it's going to change and get better. A lot of that's geopolitical. That has nothing to do with us. But until China returns, we won't really have a full recovery. So I think that's the greatest unknown at the moment. And we're looking hopeful. So with everything Zeke gave you, with the couple that I reinforced, which I would normally include in my presentation that weren't necessarily called out in his, what are we doing moving forward? All right. So this is our Brand USA recovery framework. So I'm going to take you back on a journey. And I did this to myself just saying, this has been a long time. I can remember March 16th of 2020 is when our world changed and shut down. So in this month, that was 37 months ago. So in March 16th of this year was the three-year anniversary of when our world shut down. Our world, meaning all international, when I was in Florida, 90% of our numbers of visitors were domestic, 10% international, but that international portion was 15% of the spend. So more contributions in the way travel is evaluated as an export, and in many ways, what we focus on in our contributions to the state in this case. 20 months later, it didn't improve until, as it relates to the international market, our borders opened. So that was November of 2021. Now that was 17 months ago this month, 16 months ago last month when we were looking at it being 3 years. So that wasn't really all that long ago, but it does seem like a lifetime after a lifetime. Because I remember in March 16th, and you all were there, we're thinking it's gonna be a couple weeks, a couple months, and then we realized there was just no hope. I mean, in order to have hope, you have to see a light at the end of the tunnel. There was not even a flicker. And that's when we realized this is gonna be a long haul thing. So our world, meaning Brand USA's world, which is trying to invite people into our borders, was literally shut down. And then we had to go into a state of readiness is what we called it. And that meant that we're hopeful. We're not sure when it's going to happen, but we're going to be ready when it does. And we came up with this framework. I have to, hats off to the team. I love simple, powerful things that can tell a great story. So what I will tell you that while we were in the middle of the pandemic and in the midst of generational pandemic, generational social unrest, generational political unrest on top of the pandemic as certainly a health issue, our world was really with a lot going on. So we were being respectful. So anything that we were doing proactive as far as creating either short, mid, long form content, anything we were doing in market, we weren't doing. We kind of pulled back. But fortunately, all the content we had created was living on our websites, was living on our Go USA TV channel. If you haven't had a chance, you can get it on your phones, you can get it on your your smart TVs. It is literally the place that we gather content we create, content we curate, content we license. It tells the story of amazing places across the United States. And it's all on the platform of United Stories. And the manifesto that I would normally read, though my marketing team won't let me do it anymore because we're moving beyond it, is that the United Stories, think of those two words, how powerful those two words is, that for decades there are many people telling the story of the United States, that what makes the United States unique. And those collective voices from all those different perspectives, those diverse perspectives, make up our united stories that make the USA the most powerful and compelling destination in the world. So the content we had created up to the pandemic was telling that story when people were either looking to be inspired, educated, distracted, whatever they were looking for. When they were doing it on their own, leaning back and doing it, we had it on that site. So coming out of the pandemic, November 21st of 2021, borders open, so that was great. In the following March, and I'll say thank you to everybody in this room, and I'll say thank you as many times as I can. When we were created, it took a vote of Congress, and we had bipartisan support at the highest levels across both chambers, both parties at the highest level of leadership through 2 reauthorizations. We got the same support. That has to do with us, I think, doing what they expected us to do and maybe a little bit more, but more importantly, you all telling them that you see value in what we're doing. And certainly at the state level through Todd, at the local level through many of the DMOs here, and then with all the brands that deliver the experiences in the great state of Oregon every day. That's what we promote. We're 4 times removed from that. We have nothing to do with it. We trust you to deliver it, and then we're going to give you a platform to tell those stories, and that's what United Stories is all about. So we knew that when borders open, had to get connectivity back. So Zeke talked a little bit about that. Connectivity, I would say this year has a chance to be back to near 100%. It's constituted very differently, and it doesn't really include China in it yet. So that's going to be a different dynamic of how we look at how people used to get here before the pandemic and how they're getting here now. But that's a good sign. Connectivity is back. And so once with borders open, once we have connectivity, and as we're inviting the world back, we had to prove we're ready. So the best thing that happened to us was when our domestic tourism economy opened up, and us as Americans were pent up in our homes, couldn't travel, and then they said, all right, go do. And then we traveled around this country like nothing you'd ever seen. And when we really couldn't travel internationally, we were traveling around the United States. I can tell you one of the things this group of adults that traveled together internationally was at dinner one time. We said, all right, we're not going to France or wherever we're going, where are we going? And the group said, let's go to South Dakota. And the majority of the people never been, never seen Mount Rushmore. And I can remember sitting there watching my wife as they now do a lighting ceremony at Mount Rushmore. I looked over to her and she had a tear out of her eyes. And she goes, I dreamed about this as a little girl. I'd never been here. And for what it represents and what it means and how phenomenal it is right here in front of me, she just literally started crying. So that's what we were doing. And the world watched that. As we were saying, all right, we're ready for you, we could actually prove it because we were out and about doing it. So that was a great thing. Now, I don't have enough time here to talk to you about our funding model, how we're organized, but we are funded through ESTA fees paid by 40 visitors from 40 visa waiver countries. Every 2 years they have to register to participate in that program. That fund accumulates in a travel promotion fund. And then we have to raise $100 million a year to get $100 million a year. Did you hear what I just said? We have to raise $100 million a year to get $100 million a year. So when people weren't traveling, they weren't registering for ESTA, so our funding source dried up. So the Travel and Tourism Advisory Board, Todd served on that in the past. It's a resource within our Department of Commerce. They came to us and said, we know your funding model is compromised. How can we help? And they said, tell us, forget about what you've had in the past, but looking ahead and knowing what you're going to need to do, well, what do you need? So we went to work with all of our resources that are international media planning and buying teams, everybody that have any way to inform that conversation. We came up with a plan that said, probably over the course of mostly 2 years, but probably maybe 3 years, we need $250 million. And so we said, what the hell? If they're asking, we're just going to put it out there. TTAB took it when Gina Raimondo, the current Secretary of Commerce, came in as the Secretary under Biden, was sitting on her desk among many recommendations. They carried it forward. And then in March of 2022, What the heck? They gave us $250 million. And the good thing is that it was out of our fund. Remember that fund that gets contributed to? There was a excess $500 billion. $500 million. And so it worked out that we were asking for half of the reserve. So it wasn't any public dollars. It was our fund. And they said, all right, we're going to give it to you. They actually gave us 200 of it, free and clear, no strings tied. They made us match 50 of it like we normally do. So lo and behold, I say now we have a shit ton of money. And we really are as well resourced as we have ever been. So that's a good thing. And then in June of last year, we dropped the pre-test requirement for people coming to the U.S., which was one of the biggest hurdles for people to come in. And thanks for that. We're hopeful that as they're looking at trying to actually officially move to the endemic stage of a pandemic, that maybe here in May they'll drop the vaccination requirement for people coming in. But we'll see. So that's the journey I wanted to explain here. In last year, 2022, we did a piece starting to get back to doing new content. And it was a piece called Reconnecting in the Pacific Northwest. And it's talking about some opportunities in Washington and Oregon. So that was a piece that once we got back to it, we started in partnership with you all here in this part. I want to show you that now, real quick.
Hey girls, this is Mum and Dad. We're calling to let you know we're going on a little adventure.
We are going to the Pacific Northwest.
We're going to Seattle and Portland to drink some wine, do some hiking.
Eat some donuts, maybe take a cooking class.
We're just going to have some fun.
Our youngest just started university. We haven't been empty nesters for very long.
We decided on the Pacific Northwest in the United States for the geography, the incredible landscapes, the food scene, and our mutual love of wine. It's the perfect place for us to reconnect and celebrate this new chapter.
Our lives have been totally dictated by our kids' schedules. So to wander through Pike Place Market, laugh as fish are thrown through the air, and just to explore was liberating.
It's kind of nice to let our hair down a little, to embrace new adventure and focus on reconnecting.
We even did a cooking class. I forgot how much I love when we cook together.
You can love being a parent with your whole heart, and you'll never stop being a parent. But it's okay to hang up that hat every once in a while and just be a person in love who wants to drink wine and dance on the beach and be with their best friend.
We had so many unbelievable memories on this trip, like driving through the woods, and I was like, "Are you chewing a piece of gum? Because I smell mint." And she said, "That's just the air." It was just incredible.
What came next was something we hadn't done in years. We used to camp and tell stories by the fire and eat s'mores all the time. I felt like I was 22 all over again.
This amazing woman I fell in love with years ago has given everything to our family. So the least I could do was take her to an incredible winery.
I think love is like wine. With age, it gets richer, it gets bolder, it can be sweet, it can be spicy, it can be mellow, it makes you want to smile.
It's easy to get caught up in the career, caught up in the rut of everyday life, and think there's plenty of time to have fun, plenty of time for adventures, to travel the world. But time isn't slowing down.
I am so excited to start this new chapter of my life, travelling with my best friend.
We're going to be good empty nesters. I can feel it.
So remember the power of those two words, United Stories. So what lives on Go USA TV. And when we started that in 2018, we wanted to be the Netflix for all things to see and do in the United States. So we're going to create content, and the partner that we did that with started with Beautiful Destinations. So if you know them on Instagram, they have carved out a really meaningful presence on Instagram. They brought the idea of the campaign to us, and so we've continued to create with them on that platform. Now, the absolute brand newest piece, and I'm not even going to say anything about it, you'll recognize it. It's similar as far as part of the country and geography, but it also sends a really different message that I think is also really important this time. So let's roll that one.
I came here to Utah and to Arizona, to all these national parks and these amazing canyons and mountains and cliffs because people will expect me not to be able to do it. I've been pushing myself since I was 18, and this was just another way to push myself even further out of my comfort zone and to have new experiences that I maybe never would have had before. When I was 18, my life changed forever. I was in a workplace accident. My right leg had to be amputated just below the knee. I've always loved running. I've used it to sort of emotionally reset a lot of my life. I think that's a part of the reason that I really love this area as well, because I could just imagine running in Utah and Arizona. I could imagine the wide open spaces and I could just go for as long as I wanted to. This environment is so challenging, but it's a challenge that you sort of want to achieve. My favorite thing that I've seen on the trip so far has been the Narrows at the Zion National Park. You had to walk upstream, which is challenging physically for anyone. The added scenery and the views just made it even more worthwhile. With Bryce Canyon's rocks and dirts, that amazing red color, it's like nothing I've ever seen before. I can just feel peaceful and tranquil. I feel like it's where I'm meant to be. I can emotionally connect with the earth. As a human being, it's incredible being amongst this backdrop and this scenery because it just shows you how little you are compared to nature. And there's actually these huge landscapes outside that we don't explore enough and we really should be exploring. Being up in the helicopter and then looking down gives you a bird's eye view and just shows the enormity of the entire area. I've seen nature that we just don't get back home. I've seen colours of the earth that I didn't even know existed. I've just seen a completely different side of the planet that I didn't know existed.
So it obviously speaks to accessible travel, but transport him to Crater Lake, the Painted Hills, or any place in Oregon, and you can tell a great story here about how that's available here. So I'm kind of going on and on, but as we're coming out of the pandemic, we realized that our job is always living up at the top of the funnel, inspiring intent to travel, inspiring people down the funnel. It starts up in the part where our brand is inspiring. It carries it down through the dreaming stage. United Stories lives on dreaming, so that's where it does its work. And we're trying to get them down into the shopping phase and on into the booking and the visiting and then the retelling the stories. So we realized that with short, mid, long form content that it wasn't doing an effective enough job of doing that transformation. So we realized that we had to come up with a brand. So this is, we're calling it a bridge campaign, which is taking us from inspiration into actual, as far as we can, into the booking phase. If you look at what travel means to us when we couldn't do it, I think it's moved from a discretionary spend to a mandatory spend. It's moved from something we enjoyed doing, it might have been a luxury, and something we realize now that we had to have in order for us to be the people we want to be, because it provides distractions and growth, personally, professionally, otherwise, that you just can't by not doing it. And we talk about the economic side of it all the time, but really the soft diplomacy is when you bring people and cultures together, whether it's within our country or from outside our country, and we always have in a better place with each other if we do that. And certainly with the fact we're not traveling between China is not good for either country, because as we're dealing with a lot of geopolitical issues, when we were traveling, that was the part that then made everybody realize, yeah, but we're still people, we still have ways to connect, and it's still important for us to do that. So what we're trying to do in playing on that is that we want to instill a fearlessness to be who you aspire to be. When you translate that into how might that look in a brand campaign, it says, whoever you are, whoever you want to be, whatever experience you long for, it's more than just a possibility when visiting the U.S. Here, you are destined to find it. This is the manifesto, and again, this is literally preliminary stuff. We're showing it to our board next week, and they haven't even seen it. But here's a manifesto. It says, at any moment, there's a perfect vacation out there waiting for you. That's one just what you need. It's one that's just what you need and just what you want. Where you can reconnect with your partner under the stars of Yosemite or find your wild side at mile 346 of Route 66. The one that when you finally taste Mary Mac's mouth-watering chicken in Atlanta or discover, and on and on and on. It's basically focusing on, and that manifesto could be rewritten 100 times by putting Oregon experiences in there. And that's what it actually does. And then the one thing I'll add to that, just an anecdote, I have the privilege of being the destination marketing CEO for the United States of America. Those 3 letters, probably the most powerful brand in the world. Nobody owns them, it's not patentable. But what makes the USA experience is that you can have it here in the US. So my friends will say, Chris, you can have the USA experience anywhere in the world. I say, I have to give you that until I can prove differently. But you can only have the USA version of that experience here, and that's what makes it unique from any other experience you could have. And so that's what we're really focusing on with this manifesto. And you come up with this tagline, this is where it's at. So these are literally some preliminary creatives. On this left side, it's under the persona of excitement. On the right side, it's under the persona of family time, and I'll just give it to you. And these are really early stage, just rough cuts. And we're not trying to develop a whole new campaign. We're just trying to take the content that we already have, repurpose it into 30-second spots, and focus on that experience. This is where it's at to get the USA version of that experience. So I'll show them real quick to you. So that was the excitement one, obviously, and then here's the family one, or group one. I like that end where it goes doom, 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 doom. But I'm not the creative guy, but I like when I know something I like when I see it. So again, this is just evolving. It's not the one that we're going to have eventually. It's just in the bridge between when we are inspiring with content to trying to push it down the funnel and take it to action. When people are actually deciding where they were going, we want to remind them that the U.S. version is still there waiting for them. So that's what it's doing. And these are the markets we're targeting. The top 10 markets that we usually target. You'll see China not on there. And that would be the 11 markets we usually are focused on, but we're not doing China yet because China's not ready for us. We'll also do an influencers campaign. I know you guys have used that here, but this is us. Remember that grid I showed you first? We had to prove we're ready, and we had influencers come in. We're still using them because it's still the best way to tell the story when you have those people that have reach to be able to go do that. You can see that Oregon is down there, however many down that is, tying it with Utah. So be really prominent as we're going back into the market, bringing influencers in. And then how do we market together? And Todd's colleague that came up and presented, I would say the state of Oregon from the day that we were brought into existence realized that they had limited resource for international marketing, and they realized that you could take one of your dollars, one of our dollars, turn it into $3, $4, $5, and $6 So they've taken advantage of it in really great strategic ways. What are some future events coming up? IPW, it's the one time a year where we bring our world of stakeholders together. Oregon, the state, has a great presence there. Many of the destinations and brands, great presence there. This year, first time in San Antonio in May. So we'll welcome the world back to the great state of Texas, where we hold up San Antonio, the state of Texas, but otherwise sell the entirety of the country on the floor. So that's great. And then we have a little event that's our version of WTM, where we invite all the travel trade, the package travel from all over the continent of Europe, 20 countries, to one spot for an all USA show. It'll be in its 4th year, and Oregon is there for that too, and so we're looking forward to that. And I think with that, I'm pretty much done, except for here's what I want to say to you. I don't think Todd knew this was coming, but as a young state tourism director, when I got introduced into this world of destination marketing and had the privilege of doing it for the state of Florida, there was a wily old veteran that was among that group and took the young guy, or we're about the same age, so the less experienced guy, up under his wing and kind of showed him the way. And I would say that every time I come to an event like this, I feel the love for Todd, and I feel the appreciation each and every one of you have for him. But it's not only here, but it's in Washington. Todd's been chairman of U.S. Travel Board. He's been chairman of Department of Commerce's Travel and Tourism Advisory Board. So his story of the Oregon version of the USA experience has always been prominent and always been part of informing conversations, but more importantly, his leadership as a professional and a person has been unmatched, I would say, in lots of ways. And Todd was a somewhat recent addition to our board, and now instead of just calling him a colleague and a friend, I can call him boss because he's the chair of our board. And I really appreciate everything he's done and all he does for each and every one of you. So I probably went way over. I don't know if we have any time for questions. Have we gone over, or are we out of time? If we are, I'm happy to take any questions that you have of me or of Zeke, and I'll let Zeke answer his questions. I can't answer his. But any questions anybody has of either of us?
Hi, Chris. Thanks for being here, and Zeke too. I'm Billy Moser with Travel Portland, oversees strategic projects as well as international. And the slide went super quick, but Japan is not on the top 10. Super important market, obviously, for the entire West Coast, I'd say, but particularly for Portland and Oregon. If you could speak to that.
Yeah, so Japanese market, y'all know it well. It's one of the most important markets for this state. At this point, it's a little bit challenged as it relates to some of its ability to get back. So at least with our consumer campaign, we're not launching with Japan right now. But in May, we're leading a mission to Asia, which is going to South Korea and Japan. So we're going to get back into market and engage with our travel trade and media friends there that help us facilitate travel and tell the story. And then when we feel like that they're marketing, any of you that are in it know it's the right message at the right time to the right person in the way they want to receive it. And just right now, in all the ways that we measure Japan, it's not part of this launch, but that doesn't mean it won't be part of future launches. And interestingly, we're about to launch the largest B2C campaign in the 13-year history of our campaign. Because of that shit ton of money we have, we can actually do it in a more compelling way than we've ever done before. So we're all excited about that. Other questions? All right, I'm going to be around for most of today, so if there's any question you might want to bring to me directly, personally, I'm happy to take that. But otherwise, always a great joy to be with you here and celebrate your individual success, our collective success, and let's get back at it. Thanks.
All right, good morning. Thank you, Chris and Zeke. We really appreciate you coming, traveling in again. I know after seeing those videos, I'm well inspired to get out and explore more of the states. We are running wonderfully on schedule. I just want to take a quick moment to thank our 2 exhibitor break sponsors, the Washington County Visitors Association and 7 Feathers. Please, we cannot do it without their support.